Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 295. 295, being recorded on April 9th, 2014. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malentano.
How long have you been planning that one, asshole?
Only about 6 hours. He was talking about it in chat.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I appreciate a great, well-timed joke. It's amazing.
You're not bitter at all, are you?
I'm not bitter at all.
There's only a small amount of ire headed my way.
We'll see.
Let's
what
just
it
say
is.
the next package you get, you should open up outside.
Yes.
Or maybe not at all. Just a thought. We're only 5 episodes away from Magical 300. So, you guys want to plan a party or something?
Yes.
Can we do it at your house?
Yes.
Does that mean we have to go to Wyoming?
Yes. I'm not going to move my house anyplace else.
All right.
So that's what, May the 7th?
I don't
Hurricane
know.
disaster?
Yeah. All right. All right.
14th.
Scary.
Alan says the 14th.
Oh, no, sorry, 14th.
May the 14th.
It's not the
May
2nd today, is it?
14th. It is not.
Because I will be there on the 14th.
Oh, man, that's quite a celebration.
Yeah.
That's all we need. That's
Pulling out
we
all
need.
the stops.
Al Ryan and Reese dancing on
Yeah.
that laser level table.
Hey, Alan's making it here. What's your excuse,
Yeah,
Jeremy
I'm
and
freaking
Josh?
moving there.
Yeah.
All my stuff, I'm moving there.
Well, hopefully
And
not
you
all
have
of it.
300
glasses and your shoes.
My glasses and my shoes, so I can have them.
Have
Yes.
them.
Let's talk about hardware and stuff, I guess. We record this live sometimes on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, and sometimes other times whenever we do special events. So, but if you want to know when we record it live, you can watch us record it live. Be there in the chat room, interact with us, make fun of Josh or Jeremy or Alan or me or Ken or whoever. You can do that. At pcper.com/live. Now, if you want to be notified when we go live, maybe you forget, maybe you're not very good at setting your Google Calendar or your calculator watch or alarm or whatever you use still. If you go to pcper.com/subscribe, you can get signed up for our mailing list. All you do is you put your name in here and your email in here. You hit that submit button there, and you'll be signed up for our list. You can auto unsubscribe, not stuff, whatever you want to do. We don't use it for anything except to notify you when we are going live for this amazing, highly entertaining and informative production. Right?
Right.
Everybody agrees? So let's get right to the informing and entertaining. Ken, the guy over there, we don't have a camera on right now, but he's over there. He's over there. The camera guy's not paying attention. Did a little story about building a gaming PC for under $550. This story started really when we did 3 different builds for Titanfall, and as the internet tends to do, complained about some of the things in our lowest price build. Now, to be fair to us, we didn't say this is the cheapest system you could buy to play Titanfall at 1080p. What we said instead is this is a system that can play Titanfall 1080p very well and do other things, but we'd listen to our fans, our commenters, our haters, people that just randomly rant on the internet a little bit, and we wanted to take up some of their suggestions and see if it actually made sense for the hardware that they would have picked instead. And what's interesting is that if you look at this table of selections, as I zoom in, maybe just a little, you can see here that these are processors that I had not tested at all previously. We had the AMD Athlon X4 760K, $85, and the Intel Pentium G3220 for $65. The AMD part is a quad-core, quad-thread processor, and the Intel Pentium is a dual-core, 2-thread system. Now, and for motherboards, we're using $60 motherboards, H81 for the Intel system, A55 for the AMD system, and then everything else is the same. We have an R9 270 graphics card, a single DIMM 8 gigs of memory, Western Digital 1 terabyte Caviar Green, a Coolermaster GX 450 watt power supply for $50, a Coolermaster N200 micro ATX case for $50. So you can see the totals are $560 and $540, depending on price fluctuations on a minute-to-minute basis in the world of the internet. But it's interesting about these two processors, right? The Athlon X4 is essentially a what processor?
Richland without the APU.
Okay, Richland without the APU enabled. And the Pentium G3220 actually has Haswell architecture. It has HD graphics. They're really bad, but it has Intel HD graphics on it. And obviously the R9 270 is a much better solution for that. So we did a little video. We looked at these platforms. You can see the Athlon boxed processor that we bought. We bought the motherboard. These are micro ATX cases or motherboards that are narrower. They're smaller than regular micro ATX motherboards, even though they fall under that naming scheme, I guess, if you will. You can see here the H81 motherboard along with that G3220 processor. The other components, the R7 270, we went through all of these already. Here's what's interesting about this. Gaming performance-wise, these two systems are very, very comparable. So we built these two rigs. We tested Battlefield 4, Metro Last Light, and Grid 2. And in general, the Intel system was maybe 1 to 2 frames per second better in terms of average frame rate at 1080p at their highest in-game image quality settings. So you can see with that system, we were able to play Battlefield 4 at like 37 frames per second, Metro Last Light 38, Grid 2 at 60 frames per second. And again, this is with a $540 system configuration. Now in CPU performance, because even though we were focused on gaming performance, we know some people, at least secondarily want to know what the CPU performance is going to be like. You can see here that we tested Cinebench 11 single and multi-threaded, and then X264 benchmark in the first and second pass. And depending on the multi-threadedness of that benchmark, it varied who actually won the result right there. So if you look at the single-threaded Cinebench result up top here, the Intel processor is probably, 15-20% faster than the Athlon processor in the single-threaded result. But when we go into multi-threaded, obviously because the AMD Athlon X4 is a quad-core versus a dual-core part, you can see the performance difference. The edge goes to AMD. Now, if you look at the X264 results, the first pass seems to be more single-threaded, while the second pass is more multi-threaded. So again, you can see how these kind of change back and forth. So it makes sense then a little bit why the Intel processor would be just as good with 2 cores as the AMD processor is with 4 cores, considering most games are still at 2 threads, maybe they're up to 4 threads at this point, but most of them are focused on one primary thread, maybe some secondary threads as well. So the Intel processor is still able to keep up gaming performance-wise with the Athlon X4, and surprisingly at a little bit lower price. Right? I think when we wrote the article, it was $20 less expensive than the X4 760K. It's interesting, right? So these are systems I would not have built otherwise without kind of some of the prodding of the community at large, right? And you look at the Build a PC subreddit. These are the types of systems when people say, hey, I'm on a really, really tight budget. What kind of system can I build? And people don't really want to suggest just an APU build, right? You can get if you go back up to this price list here, how much is the A10 7850K? $180, I think.
The one 7850?
The 7850K, yeah, the high-end APU.
It's $180.
So that's $120 more than the G3220. All right. And you can then put all of that money into a graphics card as the difference, right? So now we have a $180 GPU, whereas before, if you take that $120, move it back into the APU, you're limited to a $60 card. Maybe now you can do dual graphics, but it's not going to be anywhere near the performance you get with an MSI R9 270 gaming graphics card. It's really, really compelling thing. It still, again, shows, even though DirectX 12 and AMD Mantle are showing you ways that CPU is still limiting performance in some directions with gaming, the majority of that still lies with the graphics card, and that is proved by both of these systems being very, very capable with considerably low-end processors and a pretty high-end to mid-range, depending on your point of view, graphics card. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, it's different from what I picked for the cheap end for the leaderboard, because I went with the 7700K because it's about 160, so you shave about $20 off it.
Okay.
And the R7 240. So, okay, It's nowhere near as powerful for gaming, but at the same time, for productivity, for an
Right.
HTPC, you're going to get a lot out of it. But you guys are doing a very, very specific. I'm going to browse the internet and game. What's the best bang for the buck I can get?
It's
And
interesting. Like some of these communities, what they will shave pricing on, shave $10 on here or there to add $10 to that graphics card, right? If you look at like the power supply we picked is not the least expensive power supply you can find, and it's a little bit overpowered, right? You don't need 450 watts to power these components. You could probably get a power supply for $30 sometimes with that $10 mail-in rebate or something like that, and now all of a sudden you've got $20 more to spare. Now you can get a case, like a really bad one, for like $19.99, right? Or you can use a cardboard box, like Ken said.
like I went with a Corsair one.
Yeah.
The CX430, and as long as that $20 mail-in rebate still going on, it's $20.
Yeah. So I mean,
430 watt PSU. It's crazy.
and that's like I think we put this in the article, right? Is like no matter what we pick, you're always going to be you're always being able to find something different that week that's going to have a rebate that's going to be on sale that didn't exist before. Maybe with a better chipset, maybe with a better feature set than what we picked. But this is just kind of proving the case. So there'll probably be people in the comments that say, "Hey, you're an idiot. I built a faster system for $506." I'm like, great.
Yeah, but you can only do that on the second Tuesday of the month because that's when all the prices dip for a second.
Right. Yeah, and you catch it at the right time. You catch it when stuff's in stock, and this can happen. I just came away really impressed with these two processors. Ken did all the testing, so he'll tell you that even in correct me if I'm wrong here, Ken. Even using them in a desktop environment, you could tell the difference between using these versus the 4770K that we normally kind of are operating with.
Yes.
Yeah. So
also, spindle hard drives don't help any of that.
spindle hard drives, yeah, right.
But that G3220 made him cry. Like, that was not nice.
It's not. And it's one of those things where this is a system where you're going to have to close all your applications in the background before you start up a game, right? You don't have a headroom to make up for some of the performance deficits that, Norton antivirus or AVG scans in the background might be able to otherwise help you with if you had a higher end system. So, so you'll have to be more careful, but I still think I came away pretty impressed with what the gaming experience was like with these systems completely outfitted for $400 or $550 or so. It was interesting. It was an interesting little experiment.
And it is, like Ken and those guys are saying, I mean, a lot of us are used to running with an SSD. I mean, Alan had SSDs before, they were cool. And, I jumped on board, 2 years ago. And this article that I wrote earlier today, much earlier, I used a Western Digital Green 1 terabyte drive, and there was like some wrist slitting going on at the test station because you'd be amazed by how much of a difference it really makes in your life when you're just doing basic things. I mean, it takes an extra 15, 20 seconds just to load up an AMD Catalyst driver in the lower right-hand corner. With this spindle drive, when an SSD, it's just magic.
Yep.
One thing I was curious about with this build that I'll ask Alan is, because I don't even remember anymore, how much of a performance gain would we have seen going to a 7200 RPM drive? I guess, do they even sell Velociraptors anymore for 10Ks? Like, is that even a product?
They do. It was
they
on
still
sale
sell?
for $169 for the 1 terabyte the other day.
I mean, that still looks more expensive than we were looking, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's only like $50 over the cost of that green that you used.
Yeah,
But
but
$50
you could buy
is
a
a lot in
120
this.
gig SSD for $90, right?
Yeah.
Well, it ends up $50 would be 10% of the cost of.
That's a lot. Considering the target audience for this type of system that is willing to shave $10, $15 off of a case because they don't mind getting their fingers all cut up when they're building inside of it.
Yeah.
Like,
But it's a big difference though when you're all the way down at one green drive compared to anything faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made a point in the article to say, come on, just spend another $80, $90 and buy this 120 gig Evo. Do it now.
Actually, how much was the green?
I guess the green's what?
58 or something like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
60-ish.
Like, you could get an SSD for that price. The issue is you wouldn't have any place to store games.
Yeah, you'd only have like.
Yeah, like, say,
128
Titanfall?
I feel like... yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
people have to have drives lying around for different things, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you
Like-
have any of these other components, like if you already have a motherboard, or if you already have a case, you already have a power supply that you're reasonably comfortable with, you can probably use it. That's down a different path, obviously. But it's a pretty good article. Go look at it and check out the video we did of it as well. And you can see all the links for the parts that we picked in that story as well. I think it will surprise you how this type of stuff pans out, considering you can buy an Intel Core i7-4960K for $1,100 for your primary processor, and that's the only component you've just paid for. Or you could buy a $1,500 dual GPU graphics card that we'll talk about in a minute as well.
Or a $3,000 one.
Or a $3,000 one. Moving on to the next story, we'll talk about this just real quick. Maury posted a review of the SilverStone Tundra Series TD03 all-in-one liquid cooler. He's on a rampage with these recently. So this is, I do like the styling of this. I still like the styling of what SilverStone has done. It is a sub $100 unit, so it's fairly low cost. Performance seems pretty good. It did not get an award or anything like that. The pricing, he says, was a little bit too high, and the use of quarter-inch tubing hurt that performance, right? And apparently it doesn't like the use of the aluminum radiator, so there is maybe some concern there long term. But I like the simplistic look of some of these new coolers that are coming out, right? They don't have fancy flashing LED lights necessarily. They're not, different, special colors. I like kind of like it's white, kind of, it might be just the lighting. It kind of almost looks creamish in nature.
Yeah, I mean it's the snow, it's the winter
Okay.
effect, it's the cooling, and you've got the gunmetal gray on the heatsink portion.
I like it. I like it.
Nice. It's nice.
I like it. Let's get to the biggest story from this week, probably, and that is the release of the AMD Radeon R9 295X2. This is a dual GPU graphics card that has been teased over the last couple of weeks by AMD through, pictures they FedExed to me and weird stuff like that. But it's finally here. This is the dual Hawaii graphics card that we were all kind of expecting. And it is very, very interesting. AMD has as this image kind of indicates, so they have a history of these dual GPU graphics cards, of being the fastest card out there. Most recently, we had the HD 7990. Before that, we had the 6990. What was before that? The 5970?
Yeah.
5970. And before that, 4870 X2. And then 3870 X2.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I am on fire today. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to guess that most of those cards had slightly toned down versions of the flagship single GPU part combined onto a PCB.
Typically, yeah.
Typically.
Like 5970 was two 5850s rather than 5870s.
That's fairly standard. If you look at the 690, it was never running as fast as the full 680, right? And the problem AMD had, even with the 7990, they had some fairly negative press about overheating with that card as it stood, even with its triple fan configuration. So with this one, they decided to get around that by going with a water cooler. So if we look here, you can see the layout of the card, what they did in terms of it's two full power, actually higher clock than the standard reference design HD Radeon R9 290Xs. You can see those two GPUs here. You've got all your power delivery mechanisms here. You've got 4 gigs of memory per GPU. You've got your PLX bridge chip there. And then for your cooling situation, you've got two water coolers, two integrated, self-contained, maintenance-free water blocks with a pump in each. They're working in series with this 120 millimeter radiator and 120 millimeter fan to cool the GPUs. And then you can see around the edges of the water blocks are heat sinks that are cooling all of the power delivery and memory systems on there. And then you can see in this photo here, there's actually a fan that blows and keeps the heat sinks on the power and memory cool as well. Specification wise, this is kind of interesting. The R9 295X has 5,632 stream processors, so that's a lot. But the engine clock is rated up to 1,018 megahertz, which is actually a little bit above what the R9 290X was by default. You get 11.5 teraflops of compute performance on the card total. Basically any spec that the 290X had, you are doubling it. So you've got two 512-bit memory buses. Memory still running at 5 gigabits. This is kind of an interesting one. Two 8-pin connectors with a 500-watt typical board power, a 500-watt TDP on this beast, which we'll talk about in a second. Here you can see the card as it is intended to be seen. I like the visual styling on it. I don't think I'm as big a fan of it as I am with like the GTX 700
The 690
series.
really looked nice.
The
when that
690 was
first.
yeah, you're right. That was the first one that came out where they bragged about the materials that were being used, and hey, if you're going to spend $1,000 on a video card, it might as well be made out of high quality stuff. And it made sense, right? It's a flagship, part that is a high. It's I can't remember the phrase I'm looking for now, but it's something you want to reach for, something you want to
Halo?
strive for. Yeah, that'll work too.
Halo product.
This has a lot of that same look and feel to it. If you look at the format here, it loses some of its luster, obviously, when you realize that there's two tubes coming out of it going to a radiator with a fan. No doubt, I'm not going to deny that. But I do think the metal finishes, the black metal finish, the riveted styling to the screws and stuff is actually really, really nice. The red fan here lights up. The red Radeon logo up top lights up as well. It's a pretty impressive looking card, as you would expect. Actually, I have it here if I can lift it up without scratching up the back of it or anything. I mean, and
Did
it's
you get a hernia lifting that up?
it's not as heavy as the Ares 2, right? Which was a water-cooled dual
7970.
7970 card, thank you. That was much taller, much larger. I mean, you can kind of see it is still a 2-slot card if you discount the radiator and stuff that you have to include there. It does have a nice backplate on it for protection and looks that I like.
And stiffening up that old PCB, if you know what I mean.
It's I know what you mean. It's a long card, if you know what I mean. Longer than the 690, longer than the 290X, longer than it's about the same length as the Ares, though.
Same length as 7990, I think.
Same length as 7990, Ken says he thinks as well. So, but what about those two power connectors? Those two 8-pin power connectors. Hey, have you ever seen one of these before? Have you ever paid attention to a table like this? This is an illustration of a power supply unit power specifications.
Yes, I'd like to raise my hand and said yes, I've done that because I've tried to run multiple high-end cards, and I realized that you can't really drive two high-end cards off a single rail very effectively.
Right. So quick summation, there's two kinds of power supplies that exist. There's multi-rail and single rail. Single rail, I don't think you have any of these concerns. Other than you need to make sure that your 12-volt rail can supply 50 amps of power.
I think we could arc weld with that.
We could probably arc weld with that. 50 amps of power to the GPU, right? If you have a multi-rail, each connector has to be able to provide 28 amps of power. That adds up to more than 50. I don't want to get into the engineering physics behind it because I don't know what it is. But what is more complicated than that is you have to know which rails are supplying that, which rails are already going to the CPU, which rails might be used for accessory devices. And then, like, if you look at this diagram, you have to know you need to know which of those connectors on the back can be used. Like, for example, in this, the 12V3 rail has these two connectors that are shared. Well, if you want to plug one of those into the 8-pin input of the Radeon R9 295X2, then you cannot use this one at all for anything, ever. Done, nothing. If you want to use, this rail, which is V5, then you can only use one of those two connectors for anything ever as well. So, it's much more complicated than anything we've ever had to deal with when it comes to installing a reference graphics card, right? Usually, it's a 6-pin plus an 8-pin. there's no kind of indication that, hey, you really need to be careful with this. This time they're saying you need to be very careful with this. They're going to have a list of power supplies that are approved, but if you already have a power supply or you want to choose your own, you need to make sure it meets these specifications. What do you guys think about that before I go any further? Do you think that's a concern? Do you think anybody that's buying this card is going to be comfortable with that?
I think both.
Okay.
I mean, it's nice that they threw it out there and they're educating people and telling you that, this is not a simple upgrade. You really have to think about it. But then at the same time, you're going to be paying $1,500, and most people who don't know a whole lot about computers, they're either going to hire somebody else to do it if they can afford that, or they're really, really excited about their graphics. Really excited.
Anybody else?
So, would
Yes.
this problem have been better if they just put another 6-pin connector on the board?
I think they would have put. I think they should put
Because-
a third 8-pin
Okay.
on there, right? So my argument is, so the way the math is, to PCI Express specifications, an 8-pin power connector is only supposed to be able to supply 75 watts of power. No, 150.
8-pin is 150.
8-pin is 150. So you get two 8-pins. Simple math says that's 300 watts, plus 75 from the PCI Express bus itself. So you're at 375, which is significantly less than 500. So they're basically saying, those 8-pin power connectors can pull quite a bit more safely. There's no electrical reason why they can't pull more power than that. It's just
Unless
a matter
they use
of...
really, really crappy wires in their 8-pin connectors.
Correct. Right. But the idea would be any power supply that is a 1,200 watt, 1,000 watt power supply is probably not going to be cheap and crappy.
Correct.
Probably. Can't say for sure. Whereas had they just added a third 8-pin, we would have been at 520, right? 525 watts of available power. And I guess I don't know why they wouldn't have done that.
That's what Asus's
The
theory
Ares-
always was with the Ares cards and the Mars cards. Just put in the... Because they're already breaking the spec. Like,
Right.
three connectors isn't to spec, but they're already breaking it, so
Yeah.
who cares?
Eight-
right?
How often do you see 3 of those 8-pins on a power supply, though?
Well, again, if we're talking about a power supply that's powerful enough to push a 500 watt video card, I would say almost all of them, if not all of them.
If
So you're saying they would have to have
850 and
4
above.
total, right?
850 and above will probably have 4 8-pins.
Because you have to think about dual SL or
Right,
dual
because
card
anytime you recommend,
configurations.
anytime you say power supplies like SLI or Crossfire Ready, you're talking 2 8s or a 6 and an 8 or 2 6s for each card.
Yeah.
So I
The
think
number
adding a
that could
third one.
crossfire would be limited.
Yeah. I just think, I asked AMD about that and they were like, well, we thought this would be less messy and, one less cable you have to worry about. And I think that's crap, right? It's much more messy to have to force the consumer to, go look up the amperage rating of their power supply and find which rails are powering which because you're overdrawing PCI spec. Whereas if you didn't overdraw it per line, then in theory you just be able to plug in any 3 random 8 pins you have on your system and go. I think. So that's what I would have done. It's not a deal breaker that they didn't, but that's what I think they should have done.
You know what? I hate to go off on a different direction, but this really reminds me of about 15 years ago when I was building a machine for the University of Wyoming. They wanted at the time a 1 terabyte array of drives, but you had to use so many drives at that time. No power supply out there could support that, and so we did we've got an ATX power supply that does this, but before you boot up your computer, you need to turn on this old AT power supply that handles the rest of the drives. And if you don't do that,
That seems
you're in
legit.
bad shape.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's a good plan. You maybe you put a
use an
post-it
AT
note.
power supply.
Maybe you put a post-it note on that machine and say, "Don't forget to turn on the other power supply."
Well, the miners will just take a second ATX power supply and bridge the connector so that's always on.
Yeah,
So that's safe.
I have
Yeah.
done that before, but that was
Yeah.
a power supply that was powering external coolants water cooling units, separate from the rest of the system. It was totally safe, I'm sure. Let's talk about performance. It's pretty good, as you would expect. 2 R9 290X GPUs on a single card. are going to perform magnificently. We tested a 2560 by 1440 and 4K because we're awesome like that. 3840 by 2160, and you can see here, the blue line is GTX 780 Ti in SLI compared to the black line, which is the R9 295 X2. It is faster. Ta-da! If we look at 4K, it is faster still. The new card is pretty damn fast, and they're not to toot our own horn or anything, but frame pacing seems to be fixed, right? Yeah. Like it's AMD. This card would have been a total crapshoot, like the HD 7990 was when it launched because of the frame pacing issues. So they have fixed not all of it, but most of it.
NVIDIA, on the other hand,
NVIDIA seemed to regress a little bit like that. We're working with them on that side of things. BioShock Infinite's always been really bad.
Someone threw up on your graph.
Yeah, it's weird. Crysis 3.
And strangely, it's not orange.
You can see Crysis 3, the R9 295X faster. Frame pacing on both configurations here is pretty good. And then at 4K, it seems to be that at 4K, the actual performance differences between the 295X2 and the GTX 780 Ti cards in SLI it actually grew, right? The 4K performance was more better on the AMD side at that resolution. So the only, I think outlier to that was Skyrim because of its being a DirectX 9 game and frame pacing not working in there. If we scroll down to that's not good still. But they're not going to fix it ever. So if you have a DX9 game, it's just not going to get any better ever. Sorry. Like that's they're not going to fix it. Don't.
Thank goodness Elder Scrolls Online is DX11 then.
Yeah. Thank goodness. So performance is great. Let's talk power consumption. It uses a lot of it, as the 500 watt TDP would indicate. It uses about 257 watts more than the Asus R9 290X DirectCU 2 card, which is obviously a single GPU card. It used 663 watts total system power draw. That includes the processor and the motherboard and SSD and everything. So it's not light on the power consumption there. It's actually using 80 watts more than the pair of 780 Ti cards in SLI, right? So that's a significant amount. Probably if you're buying a $1,500 video card, you don't care about 80 watts. Yeah, but as Kim points out, that's a 750 Ti power draw difference between those two configurations. It's a lot of power, don't get me wrong. It would be better if it were lower, but it's not really going to make a big difference either way. Sound levels, this is important as well. The R9 295 X2 is actually quieter than a single GTX 780 Ti and obviously quieter than a pair of them in SLI. And although it's not on the graph here, the 295 X2 is actually quieter than a reference R9 290X card in its quiet mode. Right, so yes, some people will consider this cooling solution a Frankenstein combination heat sinks, combinations fans, water cooling. You got these cables dangling off of it, but it is effective. It is able to cool effectively and quietly. A card that uses 500 watts that probably would not otherwise have been able to exist. Finally, the $1,499 price tag. It'll be available the week of April 21st. AMD tells us. That's not cheap, considering you can get two 290X cards for about $1,200, maybe a little bit more. How
many budget machines can you get for that? 3?
You can get 3 budget gaming machines for the price of this.
So you and 2 other friends can play multiplayer games nicely.
Or screw your friends and get the R9 295 X2.
I think that's the advertising tagline.
Do you think that's the
Screw your friends.
We should do ad copy for these guys. Screw your friends. You didn't like them anyway. You can go on an MMO and make new friends. 2 GTX 780 Ti cards in SLI, $1,400. So it's only a $100 price difference between a pair of 780 Ti cards and the 295 X2. And considering that the 295 X2 is a better performer than a pair of 780 Ti cards, it sucks to say it, but the pricing makes sense. Had this come out at $1,200, that'd have been amazing. Had it come out at $600, that'd have been great too. but it didn't. And also considering that NVIDIA announced the GeForce Titan Z at $3,000 just a couple of weeks ago,
It's a bargain at half the price.
it makes AMD's life a little bit easier, right? They didn't have the pressure to limit their pricing as much as maybe they thought they might have had to. So I don't know. It's an interesting card. I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious that this card is for very few people, right? You have to be crazy. You have to have a lot of money. Please don't tell me you're buying this and you have a single 1080p monitor. Even if you have 3 of them, that's not really enough. Like, you need to have 3 2560 by 1440 panels, or a 4K panel, or 3 4K panels to really justify this type of gaming horsepower. So if you're going to buy this, you got to buy 3 4K monitors. That's just that simple. I think that should be the tagline too. Screw your friends. Buy this card.
4K monitors.
3 4K displays. I mean,
the
you
best
can get
$5,000 you've ever spent.
That's way under.
Yeah, well, no. You can get those. Remember the 4K that was supposed to be $700?
I guess.
And now it's 800.
But now it's 800. But 3 of those is only $2,400.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
And then you spend $1,000 on hookers and beer.
oh yeah, you need lots of hookers and beer. They're going to be so
Yeah.
impressed by the 4K monitors and video card that you bought that I think that goes without saying. That was kind of awkward.
Not
I don't
really.
think hookers care about video cards.
They care
they
about
will if you pay 'em.
$1,000.
They don't care about anything you tell them to care about. Anybody else have anything interesting to add about this card before we move on? I think we've talked about it for a while. Anybody going to buy one? No? Okay.
I'd like to get my children some orthodontics.
Well,
That's
maybe
pretty
you
much the choice too.
maybe you buy
Screw
it.
your children. Buy this car.
Screw your friends, screw your children, screw your family.
Maybe you could mine with it and earn the money.
Think of the used car you could buy with, if you instead of buying
Yep.
Crossfire.
I've
295
purchased
X2s.
perfectly good used cars for that much money.
Perfectly good.
Yep.
Perfectly
Before
good.
he got his hands on them.
Like, you didn't have to tear apart the engine and transmission and put it back together again.
No, those are
Perfectly good.
$12,000 cars.
Well, I think you got this backwards, son. Let's talk with Josh about new AMD processor release. Interestingly enough, super low power, super low price. I think I saw a quote or a line from AMD calling this the first socketed SoC.
That could be true because pretty much from here and before, most SoCs came soldered on a motherboard, and you couldn't swap them out, change them, do whatever unless you had really good soldering skills and like a wave solder machine, which most people
No.
don't have.
No, they do not.
Not even Alan.
No.
Alan, do you have a wave solder machine? You got a Superman thing behind you. Maybe you could use your X-ray vision.
Anyway, tell me
Reflow
about this
that shit.
processor. What are we looking at, Josh?
All right. Well, you know, what, last month
Yep.
we talked about this. AMD announced their socketed AM1 processors that it's actually on the FS1B socket.
It looks so cute next to the other processor.
I know, it's a little small. It's like the old Pentium 4. Remember how small those
Yeah, that
puppets
was
were?
really small. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is their Kabini, which is their more mobile-based processor. It's meant for tablets, small notebooks, inexpensive. You're looking at, $25 to $59 to run just the processor. So basically, okay, Kabini. It's based on 4 Jaguar cores, so it's again low power, nice IPC for what you get. Uses GCN architecture for the graphics. It's got 2 GCN compute cores, so 128 stream units. The high end is the 5350, which I believe runs at 2.05 gigahertz at max, but it can go down to 800 megahertz at more idle speeds. The graphics portion runs at about 600 megahertz, and again, they can adjust the clock speeds and voltage to either create more of a heatsink on the CPU, though it's not a great concept because heat does not flow horizontally on silicon very well. But anyway, they can adjust the performance of either part so that the other one can extract greater performance and not negatively affect the overall TDP of the processor. So I got one of these in the mail on Friday. Started testing on Saturday after trying to resurrect a J1900 based Intel board that just didn't want to run.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
You guys had that one before? I mean, ran perfectly fine?
I wouldn't say
It
perfectly
ran.
fine, but it definitely ran.
I see.
Yeah, we'll have to
But
send
yeah,
it back.
the box was kind of accordioned a little. The FedEx box you sent it in, so obviously they handled it with
Great care.
tender, loving care. But anyway, so installed Windows 8.1 on there with the 1 terabyte green drive, and you never really appreciated this SSD until you got onto that machine, because no matter what processor I threw at that green drive, it was still damn slow. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this. So this is a max of 25 watts TDP. If I'd have had that J1900 working, I would have utilized that much smaller power supply. As it was, I had to use a higher powered processor, and the smallest power supply I had was 500 watts.
Yeah.
So you know right off the bat that the efficiency on this AM1 platform is going to be pretty bad, because if you're pulling 25 to 35 watts for the entire thing, a 500 watt power supply is, I mean, what's the opposite of a hot dog down a hallway?
We're not.
Can
we're
we
not-
go with
we're
that
not-
imagery with
No.
this?
No.
A knockwurst down a mouse hole?
How about a really large person pulling tug of war down? Okay, we don't want to go there.
Nope.
But anyway.
Nope. I said that already. Let's move on.
Yes, moving along. Performance on this was surprisingly good. I compared it to a older processor, the A10 6970, which is a slightly lower clocked Richland, and is I think it's considered a 100 watt TDP part, but because it is lower clocked and they've done some things, I mean, it does not ever really hit that.
Okay.
But still, for what is essentially 1/3 to 1/4 of the power, we were able to see pretty consistently 50% of the performance. So if you think about performance per watt, this product is really quite good. Not just in terms of CPU. I mean, it's a true quad core. Each
Yeah.
core has its own floating point unit. It has its own decode and fetch and instruction pipeline. So it does surprisingly well considering the TDP, and it is only a 2 gigahertz processor. And this is a product that is aimed primarily at kind of still the high growth areas that really appreciate desktop type architectures or formats. Everybody else is going tablets and small notebooks, but places like Central and South America, Eastern Europe, India, the desktop market is still very, very strong. And with a product like this, it is an SoC, so that means not only does it have the graphics and the CPU, it also has the I/O capabilities. It supports 2 SATA 6G connections, 2 USB 3.0, 8 USB 2.0, and a handful of PCI Express 2.0 lanes that you can connect to things like gigabit Ethernet. Potentially, you could connect it to another SATA controller if you wanted more than those 2 SATA ports.
Right.
So there's a lot of flexibility here, not just in terms of power, but also in price. These are very inexpensive. A motherboard basically only has to have a fairly basic power delivery mechanism, because 25 watts does not require a whole lot. You don't have to have this 6+2 power phases to supply it. It's like a 1+1, and you're going to be pretty good, or 2 plus
That's
1.
not a
but
lot of phases.
That's not a whole lot, but it doesn't pull a whole lot of power.
Yeah.
And like an Ethernet chip that's a couple of bucks, and you're kind of good to go, as well as the rest of the hardware on there. So yeah, I mean, you can get the top end configuration, I think, right now for $99. That's the 5350, and some decent ITX or micro ATX motherboard. Performance wise, I mean, graphics did okay. I think I mentioned in my article I played Doom 3 at 1920 by 1200,
Nice.
and it actually was a solid experience. I played Morrowind, the old 2002 title, at 16 by 12. Again, ran perfectly well. About the only problem that I experienced was with Supreme Commander Forged Alliance, which is not exceptionally graphics heavy, but it's pretty good at 1920 by 1200, and even more, it does leverage multiple cores. So this quad core running at 2 gigahertz, it started to get behind quite a bit when you got more units going on and the AI started doing interesting things. But overall, again, like I said, the performance per watt was really good. Again, half the performance of a 6970, but a quarter of the potential TDP that it was running at.
I did something. I looked at your power graphs here. So idle, they seem fairly close, right? And I think this comes down to the inefficiencies of the power supply. But if you look at the same thing under load, you'll see that they're obviously quite different. The A10 6790K scaled by 84 watts under load, while the new Athlon 5350 scaled by 14 watts. So it gives you an idea if you just compare idle to load under that.
Yeah. Overall, I enjoyed my time with it. It ran Windows 8.1 without an issue. I did the new update to it. It was nice. For power purposes, I did use that 1 terabyte green drive. Maybe if I wanted to keep a few more hairs in my head, I should have used a Western Digital Black. But you are a little limited with the 2 SATA connections. If you want to use this as an HD PC machine that'll actually play older DVDs and Blu-rays, you're going to have to utilize one of those SATA connections for that, and the other with your hard drive. And that kind of then negates having an SSD, because you want probably all your media files on there, and filling up 120 or a 240 gig drive with those things will happen very, very, very quickly. So that's a consideration you do. Otherwise, it has the VCE 2.0, the video codec engine. The video playback engine is the 4.2, something like that. But it handles pretty much everything except the latest. Oh gosh, what is it? HEVC. That new 4K video codec that's super highly compressed. Yeah, H.265. It doesn't support that natively, but it does have a quad-core CPU that could potentially handle that. I know that this chip does support up to 4K resolutions, but so far, nobody has really tested that. Hint, hint, Ryan.
Who, what? No?
Huh?
I'm not sending you a 4K monitor.
You're not sending me a 4K monitor, but it would be nice if you could set up your little system to push 4K to see how it does. Because Netflix, House of Cards, 4K.
You can only
today.
stream that from a TV.
Oh, those
You can only stream 4K from a TV?
Yeah, only from specific built-in TVs.
That support the HEVC.
Yeah.
Pooey.
Decoder on board.
Poo.
Yeah. Anyway,
indeed.
it didn't try overclocking it. It's not going to very much, if at all. If they even provide any kind of basic support, other than I think you can increase the PCI-E base clock from 100 on up. But yeah, I mean, it's got a tiny heatsink and fan, and I thought, oh great, a 40 millimeter fan. This thing is going to be a wee. No, it wasn't. It was very quiet.
Was it wee?
That's nice of them not to use an alpha.
Yeah. So, God, remember those 40 millimeter?
How much? Wait,
Oh,
how much? How much is this?
I can still hear that sound in the back of my head in a quiet day.
Yeah,
How much is this?
$99 for the combo.
Okay.
$59 for the CPU and about $40 for the motherboard. So,
All right.
you can. I mean, it is going to be a little faster than like the J1900. I think it's going to be very, very similar to the J2900 from Intel, but you're going to be paying a little bit more for each of those products in terms of performance, but not a huge amount. The one thing that those have going for them, they're 10-watt TDP rather than 25. So it's a pretty significant difference there. But you know, for a desktop, what's 10 watts? 15 watts between friends.
What's 500 watts between graphics cards?
Apparently,
shocker.
you know, this is really a study in opposites. We had 2 days. AMD releases a 500 watt graphics card, and the next day, a 25 watt desktop APU.
You know,
Strange.
so you can fit both on your old power supply.
And take them with you. Yes.
All right, let's take a quick break here and to thank our podcast sponsor once again, our good friends at Coolermaster.
The Pulsar aluminum gaming headset by Coolermaster features 42mm drivers that deliver clear highs and powerful bass, immersing you in the action for a perfected audio experience. The aluminum ear plates can be customized to your personal style for a truly unique look. Built for customization and optimized for sound, you can learn more about the Pulsar at coolermaster-usa.com.
All right, thank you very much to Coolermaster, and make sure you go visit them and talk with them and tweet at them and buy their stuff and say thank you for supporting PC Perspective, because we wouldn't be able to do this show without them. I don't think. I think Ken would probably just walk out if he didn't have the pleasure of playing an ad from Rajiv. I think he'd quit.
Really? You could just not pay him because Coolermaster didn't pay you, and he'd walk out.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yes.
That's in reality that's what I meant. All right,
Cold hard world, meet Ryan's face.
let's walk through a handful of news items pretty quick because we're running late again. Alan, Plextor launched an M6E PCI Express SSD, and
That's pretty much M.2, which is sort of the MSATA form factor, but it's meant for M.2, different physical connector, right? And they just put that and bridged it onto a PCI Express board because electrically it's basically the same thing. It's a Marvell controller that instead of speaking SATA speaks PCIe.
But it's got 3 different colored LEDs on the back. It's got yellow, green, and red.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure
Stop,
I could
go,
design
and go
that
very
PCB.
fast.
I'm pretty sure I could design that PCB.
Yeah, it's a very, very simple PCB. Specs look pretty good. It's actually very similar to what you have found in the MacBooks and such, like the MacBook Air that Ken has, actually. Does yours have the Marvell in it, Ken?
but it can cut
Yes, it
cake.
does.
So there you go. It's basically the same thing that's in Ken's MacBook, except now it's available for your PC.
what do you think about these prices?
They're actually pretty good. They're you're paying a little bit of a premium. I think that should be much closer to $1 a gig, especially considering what the other drives that the Marvell SATA variant.
Yeah, but you're paying for a whole nother PCB.
There's
It's got to be
nothing.
like $100 right
Yeah, look
there.
at that. Look at that PCB. Look how it's got a place for a
It's got
screw.
3 LEDs on it, man.
Yep,
And
look
it's
at
got
these-
big silk screen
Hold on.
Plextor.
Yeah, look at these things
It's
right here.
ergonomic and minimalist. Come on, this is art.
Yeah. So the specs are decent. I say decent because there's more PCI Express parts that are not just transmogrified M.2 parts on a PCI Express board coming probably soon that can unleash a lot more power, like a lot more throughput and IOPS than what this can, right? This is basically a portable spec'd M.2 part they've just, kind of made plug into your desktop.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Remember?
Hey, I would kick that out of my PCIe slot for eating graham crackers.
I don't know. Graham crackers get pretty itchy in bed. Like, That'd
Who
be
said
pretty
anything
annoying.
about bed? I said PCE slot.
Oh.
Anyway.
Are graham crackers electrically conductive?
No.
Oh, that's fine.
But
then.
they would itch in your slot.
They would
But you know what? That's how you
in the
get
slot.
amped.
Oh, nobody wants that. If you remember way, way, way back to CES, it feels like it was forever ago. It turns out it was only 3 months ago. Is that right? Yeah. Remember FreeSync? Remember us talking about FreeSync? It was AMD's answer to G-Sync.
And yell FreeSync.
Yeah. Yep. That's how you do it. Well, apparently a French website, hardware.fr, says that the VESA standards body has accepted AMD's proposal for FreeSync as an extension into the DisplayPort 1.2a standard. This would, in theory, give AMD and NVIDIA, for that matter, the ability to offer features similar to what G-Sync is, but like standard across all DisplayPort monitors that support 1.2a. You remember back at CES, AMD claimed this technology was already in existence, already was used for mobile devices to save power for limiting monitor refreshes, but they didn't really think to use it for gaming until after NVIDIA came out with their technology in G-Sync. But as I guess we can't really say that anymore now that AMD Mantle is a thing, because they didn't want to create a new standard and they didn't want to, try to compete against what NVIDIA had already done and created and marketed and sold and everything like that. They were going to, hey, look, this is what we think we can do. This is something that's easy to do into the standard. We can just universally add this for, gamers, PC gamers all across the board. So it looks like that may happen. Although just because it's been rumored to be accepted into DP 1.2a, we also don't know when that will be available. So
and plus, we have no idea how high or how low that goes.
in terms of the refresh
what
rates?
if they limit you at 60 hertz for
Yeah.
DP 1.2, which I don't think they're going to do. But where's going to be the range?
They could.
I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Although I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see it.
Yeah.
NVIDIA launched a new driver and GeForce Experience 2.0. I think did we talk about last week the changes in the Shield? I think we did talk about that, right? Where you can
No, the over-the-air update?
Yeah.
I don't know that we did, but
Yeah, well, with Shield now you can do game streaming not just inside your house but over any network as long as you have 5 megabits up and 5 megabits down. Latency dependent, better internet connection will feel better. That's actually pretty cool. With, I guess, some of the big changes to GeForce Experience 2.0, they added whole screen streaming to what's that feature called?
Game stream.
Game stream. No.
Shadow Play?
Shadow Play. There we go. Game stream is the streaming of games to another device.
Yeah.
Shadow Play
those aren't very
is
good
streaming out to
names,
Twitch.
Are they?
No, not anymore. Shadow Play made sense when it was background copying stuff to your hard drive. But now we'll do whole screen sharing to Twitch. It's a pretty cool feature for people who like to do game streaming. Who like to stream gameplay, I guess, is how we'll... Yeah, this maybe not.
Hey, you know what? People have made careers out of that on YouTube.
Yeah. Yes, some of them have.
And Twitch, yeah.
Also important is the release of 337.50 beta driver. Remember we talked after GDC about this mystery driver that NVIDIA was working on that improved efficiency in DX11 in some similar fashion to what Mantle was able to do, but NVIDIA claimed that you could do all this in DX11 within the standards that exist. It's funny how we go back and forth between who wants to create their own technology and who wants to use currently existing standards. There's always a second person that wants to use the current existing standards. Weird. But the benefit of the 33750 beta driver is that it'll improve single GPU performance, SLI performance, and in some cases by some significant amounts. Now, I haven't had a chance to test it yet. It's something I wanted to do. I'll be doing the rest of this week. Was preoccupied by the 295X2 review last week. Was gone over the weekend in Dallas, Texas. I hate that place. And getting back into town, starting back in the office today. So we'll get started on some of this tomorrow because we really want to put to test what these claims are and if they're valid, right? The idea is, if you look at this graph, SLI performance on a game like Sleeping Dogs is 30% faster with the 780 Ti, with a pair of those, than it was with the 335 driver, right? If you look at something like Rome Total War, or I'm sorry, Total War Rome 2, we're talking about 50 to 70% increases in multi-GPU scaling performance. And this is not game-specific improvements, but universal, API level improvements and efficiency improvements. We're looking at figuring out exactly what test beds they use, what configurations work best. They haven't done a whole bunch of testing, as far as I know, with anything except kind of the higher end processors. So we're curious to see how that scales on lower end CPUs as well. So it's something we're doing some more research on. I know that we had posted a story, that Scott posted a story that looked at, hey, there are some people, a handful of them at least, AnonTech and Extreme Tech and one other one, that didn't see the scaling benefits that NVIDIA claimed there were. But if you look at Tech Report and Hard OCP and a couple of other places, they did see it. So I'm interested to see what our point of view is, what we can actually find and kind of measure against what's out there and what's true or not. Man, what the hell else is going on? Amazon has a new set-top box called Fire TV. I have one sitting here. That's all. That's
it?
I don't really have anything else to say about it.
It's like
I haven't
almost
used it yet.
the packaging that an SSD comes in on.
It's a little bit bigger.
Hey, look,
than that.
Ryan, I've got a Fire HD.
More like a tablet with a built-in controller.
That does look a lot like a Samsung Retail box.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Hey, I've got one too. I got one.
Yeah, but yours has cardboard.
Mine
Stop.
has an HDMI port, an optical audio port, an Ethernet, and a USB port on the back.
But does it have a SATA port? I don't think so.
Hell no.
It also comes with a remote control. Does your SSD come with a remote control?
It's for the LEDs.
With a microphone, so I can say, "Fire Allen," and it goes boo-doo-doop, and it does that thing.
Yep,
Delete
that's super effective.
Josh's porn.
That's
That's the same thing as Fire Josh. It's equivalent.
I don't really have anything else to say about this. It's an interesting device. We're gonna use it and test it, play around with it, and then we'll talk about it some more. But it
Did they not send you the controller too?
I did. I bought this.
Oh, well,
I paid
that explains
American
that.
dollars for this, not Canadian dollars, not reviewer dollars. American dollars. $99, which isn't bad, right? Probably, unless it's really crappy. But I have plenty of Bluetooth controllers here from when doing Shield testing and stuff like that. So we'll try that out and do some of the gaming on there. Although that's not really what I am targeting it for, but who knows? Jeremy, tell me what happened at NAB 2014.
Well, amazingly enough, Thunderbolt is still a thing.
What?
It was probably one of the bigger things that came out about the network broadcasters was that they came out with a null zero cable. It's a little bit faster than what we used to have. But no, it's seriously a direct connect of two machines with a Thunderbolt cable, which is kind of nice because essentially you're talking about a 10 gigabit network connection.
It's pretty good.
So if you're gonna do not a LAN but like a local gaming party, hey, you won't have to worry about latency whatsoever.
You and that one guy next to you.
Yeah. Because, he might also have been able to afford 295X, so you can hang out with him.
Yeah, well, that's true.
For the
That's
rest
a
of
good
your
point.
friends, but him. And it is kind of neat in that it's supposedly going to be able to allow Apples and Mac and PCs to talk together, so it must have some sort of strange Apple Talk thing going on. But hey,
Apple Talk.
whatever.
So when I upgraded my MacBook Air last summer, I guess that was last July or whatever, I hooked up a Thunderbolt cable between the two and transferred the disk contents. So Apple's kind of been doing this for a while. It's just it's just the Windows compatibility and the interoperability, I guess.
And you've got a FireWire cable too, don't you?
No, this is an Ultrabook, bro.
But it is a very proprietary
How
thing for Apple.
fast?
Apple was first out for displays. They were first out for just about everything.
Let me ask you this: how fast was that null zero cable? What baud rate?
I think that was maybe 10 base T.
You think? I was thinking.
I
slower
don't think it
than
was
that.
10100 base T. I think it was 10.
Anybody else know? Any of you old people out there? Hey, no.
There are actually a few in the server room, but it's been a long time since I pulled one of those out. It was
All
like
right.
Carmageddon 2
What
days.
else from NAB? Anything else interesting worth noting?
Well, hey, there's a Thunderbolt peripheral. There is like a whole dock. Finally, after how many years of playing around with Thunderbolt, we've actually got a nice little dock that will give you 3 USB 3.0 ports, gigabit Ethernet, and that's a regular gigabit Ethernet, not a direct connection, HDMI 1.4, and a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Oh, two 3.5 millimeters, a headphone and a microphone jack, and of course a second Thunderbolt port so that you can daisy chain them together. Now, if you were to completely use all 3 USB 3.0s, the Ethernet, the HDMI, and so on, you'd be pretty much capping out Thunderbolt. Adding a second one is going to slow it down. But for a small system that's got a Thunderbolt out, it does seem like a nice little thing. I mean, it is essentially external PCI-E, so it's nice to see them start to use it this way. We're still patiently awaiting our external GPU, which sooner or later must arrive.
Yeah, that crap is crap. It's annoying.
Come on, with Thunderbolt, it's almost doable. It's going to be ugly.
It's been almost
it's
doable
almost
for 2
doable.
years.
Yeah, since AGP days, they've had external.
But this makes more
Yeah.
sense, right? Like the
Yes.
whole idea of Thunderbolt being the PCI Express extension.
I mean, it's
Should
not
just work.
16 by, but it's still pretty damn good
You know,
as far as bandwidth goes. So you could pull it off if you wanted. But hey, at least now that Thunderbolt jack that you've got on the back of your high-end motherboard that you've been wondering what you're going to use it for, well, you can have a really expensive Thunderbolt dock. Why not?
the only other thing I saw from NAB was Intel Iris Pro support coming in Adobe Creative Cloud. I think we've talked about this before. They showed it during like the Haswell Tech Day originally too.
But it comes with a goat detector now.
It does have, yeah, it's Goat Simulator Adobe CC edition. You can clearly see there that goat is highlighted, accelerated by OpenCL, and simulated correctly.
and it's going to go and mess some stuff up.
Yeah, it is. That goat looks pissed. I don't know. And they don't have
They don't look
no
pissed.
date for when that software will be available, when that update will be available. But coming soon, as they often say in the business.
That's to your Adobe subscription.
Quickly mentioning as well, Qualcomm reveals new flagship Snapdragon 808 and 810 64-bit SoCs. Josh, did you read anything about these today? Did you have any
You know, the
chance
thing that
to?
keeps going through my mind is that Qualcomm executive that said 64-bit is not going to be a big deal in this marketplace for phones and tablets. And then, like, 16 hours later, he was sacked. And now we get announcements that Qualcomm is adopting the A57 and A53 core designs from ARM instead of making their own that support 64-bit ARM ecosystem.
You're right.
Strange,
You know,
yet odd.
both. All right, 2015. Looking forward to it. And finally, Alan, 6 terabytes, 3.5 inch, 7200 RPM, $100 million. What's up?
Without helium.
Oh, okay.
Boring.
But you know, at
well,
least
I don't know.
those platters are going to vibrate and make a nice noise. And if you do the modulation enough, you could like make YouTube videos of music coming from it.
But you'll never be able to do the chipmunks because there's no helium.
Well, so they're able to do this because they don't have 7 platters like the helium-filled drive has. They have 5 thicker platters with higher density.
By my math, that would be 1.25 terabytes per platter.
Why, you'd be correct.
Thank you.
There you go.
Anything else in here that's interesting? What do we got? 128 megs of cache.
Yeah, it's definitely like enterprise level kind of specs for the drive. But other than that, it's 6 terabytes.
I mean,
We
that's
won't know
good,
more
right?
until we've actually tested one, which we're trying to do.
Expected MSRP of $650.
Which is similar to the helium-filled drive.
Okay.
But not, what would it make it lighter or less, because it's got 7 platters versus 5.
Well,
I don't
they're
know. Is it
thicker.
full of data or
should-
empty?
You should, yeah, you should get your scale out. Check this out.
Does it have enough helium in it to float?
Probably not.
Do you have to weigh down the shipping containers with rocks?
No.
Don't put your hard drives in boxes with
But
rocks.
it'll help. It'll help Amazon deliver them much better.
So it'll come by drone?
Yes.
Yeah, no, clearly. All right. I think. Let me look through one thing. No, that's it. That's all I'm gonna do. I think that's gonna be it for our news and reviews for this week. Let's get into our hardware software picks of the week. And my pick is well, it's not going to load because apparently Flash died on my machine. But we're gonna talk about it anyway. The YouTube video won't load, but you can still see the page where it would load eventually. We're giving away with our friends at Galaxy a GeForce GTX 750 Ti GC and a GeForce GTX 750 GC with 2 exclamation points at the end of it. This is what the cards look like. I reviewed this one in our 750 Ti roundup in March. I'm going to say that was in March. Pretty good card. Nice cooling, 2 fans. Overclockable, especially with the new drivers and new overclocking tools out there. You can see it's got 2 DVI, a display port, and an HDMI port. And you can win these for absolutely $0. And all you have to do is go to our YouTube channel, which is at youtube.com/PCPer. You can see it right here. Not loading that video because Chrome has crashed. But you can, all you have to do is subscribe to our channel and comment on the video with what games you are excited to play on your PC with the 750 Ti or a 750 GC card. And again, big thanks go out to our friends at Galaxy for supplying the hardware for us to give away to you guys. So again, youtube.com/PCPer. You must comment and then you must subscribe or go in the other order. I don't really care. And we'll pick a winner next week. I guess that means it's Jeremy's turn, I guess. Jeremy, what free stuff are you giving people yourself now?
Well, apparently I'm going to give away the mineral oil for free because there was no point in stocking up on it. 3M came out with something better.
Oh, man.
So now if you want to do full immersion computing, 3M
With
has
interns.
a one. Okay.
With interns.
Well, he's not really an intern anymore, but this isn't just mineral oil. This is special stuff, so he still should try it. It's a fluorinated liquid. But
Oh.
3M has now released Newegg, which they're rating it at being able to cool 100 kilowatts of computing power per square meter, which is just utterly insane, but yet totally within high-powered computing density. So they're sort of saying it's going to have significantly less cost to cool than a comparative mineral oil system. So it's okay, Ken. Don't worry. We're not going to dunk you in mineral oil anymore, but I got some bad news for you.
Did you ever watch The Abyss?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fluorinated liquid. So maybe we can make Ken
Breathe
breathe
underwater?
the liquid, and we'll do the video of it.
You know,
We're going to need another
I
Ken.
have to admit, when I first saw that movie, I was very young. And when they did that, in the scene where they have the mouse or the
They
rat,
put the rat, yeah.
it scared the crap out of me. Like,
But they really did it. That
Yes.
was, I mean,
No,
that
this
was
is
the
the thing.
true oxygenated,
no, I think you're
fluorinated
lying.
liquid, and they put
No.
it in there, and he was breathing.
I think you're lying.
Apparently,
They used to
it's
call this stuff,
ridiculously tough to breathe, and it will collapse your lungs eventually, but it does kind of work.
James
3M used to
Cameron?
make this all. 3M formerly called Fluorinert is what
Yeah.
the Newegg stuff is.
Yeah, I
been
have a
around for a
feeling it is,
while.
except now
It's
it's
expensive.
environmentally friendly.
I want to breathe liquid.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, the smaller the animal, the easier it is. With a human, yeah, that's gonna hurt you.
You're going to collapse your lungs sooner or later.
Yeah.
But
Fine.
I
it'll
gotta
clean the
go out
tar and
somehow.
stuff out.
If I'm ever at the bottom of the ocean and an alien species is trying to make contact with me, I might take that chance.
Yep.
All right, Josh, what do you got?
Ed Harris in the abyss, holding his breath
Until
in a suit because
Until he thought he was
couldn't
gonna drown.
breathe the fluorinated
Right.
liquid. Anyway, these are now approaching MSRP. You can get this for $309.99 or
Wow.
$389.99 with the $20 manufacturer instant. Well, the mail-in rebate.
$289.99.
Yeah.
You said $389.99.
No, $289.
That's a
sorry.
reverse-
It's
Actually, the opposite of a mail-in
$309.99.
rebate.
That's a reverse rebate of $80. Please
Yes,
send
let's
us this
not have
form
the
in
reverse
$80, you
rebate.
moron.
But anyway, yeah, they're finally at around the $299 spot.
Well, that's,
you can pick it
I
up
mean,
again.
$299 was supposed to be the reference price. This is a custom cooled. So this is probably what its expected pricing was supposed to be. Right?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I mean, it makes sense, right? This happens. The 290Xs on Newegg are still $50 more expensive than they should be. But, when you get the release of something like the 295X2, you better have GPUs in stock, right? Like, you better have GPUs in stock. Just saying.
Better.
Just saying. All right. That leaves us with Alan.
So I have a bad habit of having like 3 bazillion tabs open in Chrome.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
It's pretty easy, right? Because
Okay.
you're like, oh, I don't want to forget that one, so I'll leave it open. There's another one I don't want to forget. I want to come back to that later,
Yep.
so I'll leave that one open, right? So this thing called One Tab, and it adds a button to the toolbar of the little upper right corner of Chrome, and you hit that button, and all of the tabs disappear into a list
Okay.
that goes on to what's similar to what's on the screen right there, which is in its own tab. So the concept is, every time Chrome fires back up, that tab comes back up.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have that tab pinned, so it makes it even narrower, right?
Yep.
So basically, you sort of go about your day and collect a bunch of stuff, tabs and whatnot, and then you just like, oh crap, look, I'm using a bunch of memory and my computer's slowing down. So you hit that button, and it just shrinks them all down. They all disappear, and they all get added to the list. From basically, it's like the newest is at the top, and then
So it's almost like a favorites.
sort of. It's kind of like a pseudo favorite / history, because what happens is
Yeah.
now you have the tabs have been removed. They're not open. They're not active. They're just as an entry in that list. If you go back to that list and you click on one of them, it not only opens the tab, but it removes the entry from the list. Right? So you could, in theory,
So it's
keep
like you're
bouncing back
creating
and
a
forth
list that
between.
you go through and...
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't have to go through and
Huh.
and you can even tell it. You can even go into the configuration of it and tell it, to silently eliminate duplicates. So if you hit the One Tab thing and you flush them all, and you had a couple that you had already added to that list before, it just kind of like doesn't add them.
Have they added multi-PC cloud sync?
I don't think so.
On that page, it says August 2013 update. We're currently working on new features, including an option for multi-PC cloud sync.
Let's
It is
see. I
later
don't
than
know if
August 2013, so I was just curious.
I'm gonna
I'm
look at
guessing
the
they
If you
didn't,
accidentally
otherwise
forget to close that tab, it
they
can
would-
embarrass
they
you
would
on
have
all your
updated this
computers.
page. Yeah.
sync.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it.
I don't think so. Either way, it's still pretty cool. All right, that's neat.
Yeah,
And that's called what again?
One Tab, one word.
One Tab. Save up to 95% memory and reduce tab clutter in Google Chrome.
They're not kidding. It's like you hit this point where you basically are pegging your memory. It only takes like 20 or 30.
My system just crashed because it ran out of memory, I think, today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
See, there you go. You could have hit that button and it just like
Could have hit that button.
all your memory.
Now,
come
when you
back.
open it back up, it is reloading the page, though.
What do you mean?
Like, it's not storing and caching the data. Like, if you preload a video and then you hit that button,
No. It's got to reopen.
you've got to
the tab
re-download
and-
the video or whatever.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. All right. Very cool. All right, guys, that's going to round up the show. Again, thank you for everybody who joined us live at pcper.com/live. If you want to do the same, go to pcper.com/subscribe to join our mailing list. We'll let you know when we are doing cool, fun stuff. Don't forget to go to youtube.com/pcper and sign up for our contest to give away the Galaxy GeForce GTX 750 Ti and Galaxy GeForce GTX 750 cards. And make sure you visit pcper.com to check out our reviews and news that we work on every day and post for you. And Jeremy's always in there getting stuff for you almost every day, unless it's a Canadian holiday called hockey or something. And we also have Scott and Tim doing news posts all the time. And then we've got reviews that you guys need to catch up on. Like if you didn't read our 295X2 review or the AM1 platform review, you should probably do that crap. Get on it. Get on it. And PCPro.com/podcast, of course. Go there. Send your friends there. Send everybody you know. Everybody you know to there and tell them to subscribe because we're a lot of fun and informative. And I mean, how many places do you get? I'll consider Ken Young the young upstart. You've got.
Are you gonna call me old?
I was probably gonna.
I was going to say incontinent, but
I was
old
gonna
works.
say we got the long-haired, red-headed guy, the no-haired guy,
And the Submariner.
and the Submariner, and then me.
And did you know that cats can live several weeks in the perfluorocarbon, liquid fluorinated hydrocarbon solutions?
Did you
Who
get that
tested
from?
this out? Let me throw this cat in here. And does he still lick his
Universities and
butt underwater?
Scientist, evil scientist.
Did you get that from Catfax?
Thanks for
All I know is that
subscribing to
scientist
Cat
is still
Facts.
alive. He left the cat in there until it died.
Yes.
Because when it came out, it was going to be pissed.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's too late now. I can't do anything about that. Sorry, Fluffy. Screwed that one up. Didn't think that one through all the way. All right, guys. That's going to be it. We'll see you next week for another PC Perspective podcast. Bye, guys. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malmontano.
Goodbye.